You're throwing everything away. My sister Victoria screeched, pacing our parents' living room like a caged animal. The business, your future, everything Dad built. I sat calmly on the leather couch, watching her performance with detached amusement. My parents, Robert and Sophia Lee, stood by the fireplace, their faces masks of disappointment and anger. A backpacking trip through Asia? My father's voice was quiet but sharp. This is how you repay everything we've given you. My name is Olivia Lee, and at 28, I was about to teach my family the difference between perception and reality. The tech division needs you, Victoria continued. You can't just abandon it for some hippie adventure. I almost laughed at that. The tech division she referred to was my creation, a digital transformation arm I'd built within our family's traditional import-export business. In 3 years, I turned it from a simple department into the company's most profitable sector. But Victoria, ever the perfect eldest daughter, saw it as just another piece of our father's empire, an empire she was determined to inherit. I've already submitted my resignation, I said quietly. The team knows what to do. Everything's documented. Documented. My mother's voice cracked. Olivia, this isn't about documentation. This is about responsibility, about family. I study her face, the carefully maintained facade of a traditional Chinese mother always putting family first. If she only knew. My flight leaves tomorrow, I said, standing up. I've already packed up my apartment. If you walk out that door, my father said, his voice glacial, don't expect any support from us. No trust fund, no shares in the company. Nothing. Victoria's eyes gleamed with triumph. She'd been pushing for this, I knew. Ever since I'd announced my travel plans 2 weeks ago, she'd been working our parents, painting me as irresponsible, ungrateful, rebellious. What none of them knew was that this was exactly what I'd been counting on. I understand, I replied, picking up my bag. I'll see myself out. As I walked to my car, I could hear Victoria following me. You're making a huge mistake, she called out. You'll come crawling back when your money runs out. I smiled, thinking about the encrypted laptop in my bag, the contracts waiting to be signed, the deals I'd spent months setting up across Asia. While they thought I was throwing away my future on some quarter-life crisis adventure, I was actually about to close the biggest tech acquisitions in our industry's history. My phone buzzed as I started the engine. A text from Alex, my lead developer. Everything's in place. Singapore team is ready. Perfect. The backpacking trip was actually a carefully orchestrated business tour. Over the past year, I'd identified 6 promising tech startups across Asia, each with revolutionary potential but struggling with capital and market access. While running my parents' tech division, I'd been quietly building relationships with these companies, setting up independent investment vehicles, and preparing for this moment. My trust fund. I liquidated it months ago, converting it into cryptocurrency and offshore accounts before anyone could stop me. The shares Victoria was so smug about me losing. I'd already sold them through a shell company I created. I had everything I needed to transform these startups into a tech empire that would make my family's traditional business look like a corner store. But first, I had to let them think they'd won. That night, I checked into the Four Seasons. Not exactly backpacker accommodation, but I had appearances to maintain. Tomorrow I board a first-class flight to Singapore, where the first of my potential acquisitions was waiting. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Alex. Victoria already moving into your office. Want me to activate Protocol Echo? Protocol Echo was our failsafe, a series of carefully crafted digital breadcrumbs that would lead Victoria down exactly the wrong path as she tried to take over my division. She'd find just enough information to think she understood everything while actually understanding nothing. Do it, I texted back. And Alex, make sure she finds the secret folder. The secret folder contained months of fake reports and intentionally flawed code, a digital wild goose chase that would keep her busy for weeks while we executed our real plans. I ordered room service and opened my laptop, reviewing the final details for tomorrow. The first company on my list was a Singapore-based AI firm developing revolutionary machine learning algorithms. Their technology could revolutionize everything from financial trading to medical diagnosis, and they were severely undervalued. My phone lit up with a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. Olivia, her voice cracked slightly. Please don't do this. Your father, we can talk about this. Come home. I deleted the message and turned back to my work. They'd understand eventually, or they wouldn't. Either way, I was done playing by their rules. The next morning, as my flight took off, I received one final text from Victoria. Hope you enjoy sleeping in hostels. Some of us have real work to do. I smiled, sipping my champagne in first class, and began drafting acquisition paperwork for what would become a $30 million deal. The game was on. Singapore gleamed beneath the early morning sun as my car pulled up to the Raffles Hotel. Inside, Marcus Wong, CEO of NextGen Technologies, was waiting. Olivia. He greeted me warmly, finally dropping the junior tech director act. I grinned. Marcus was one of the few who knew my real plans. We'd been secretly collaborating for months, laying the groundwork for what was about to happen. Victoria's probably redecorating my office as we speak, I said, accepting the coffee he offered. Did she take the bait? He pulled out his tablet, showing me surveillance footage from his company's servers. There was Victoria, logged in under my old credentials, downloading what she thought were NextGen's confidential files. She accessed the honeypot data 3 times last night, he reported. Your sister's nothing if not persistent. The confidential files were actually carefully crafted decoys, just enough real data mixed with subtle misinformation to send any potential competitors down the wrong path. Victoria, in her eagerness to prove herself worthy of running the tech division, was walking right into our trap. Perfect, I said, pulling out my laptop. Shall we begin? The next 4 hours were intense. We finalized the acquisition terms, signed the preliminary paperwork, and set in motion a series of carefully planned stock transfers. By lunch, I owned 51% of NextGen Technologies. My phone buzzed. A message from my father. Victoria says you're trying to access company servers from overseas. Stop this nonsense and come home. I showed Marcus the message. He chuckled. If they only knew you haven't accessed their servers in months. Everything they're seeing is automated responses we set up. Victoria's probably convinced she's tracking my desperate attempts to save my travel money, I agreed. Speaking of which, I opened my encrypted banking app. The first wire transfer was complete, $10 million to NextGen's corporate account. The acquisition was official. Marcus raised his water glass. To the new CEO of NextGen Technologies. And to Phase 1 of Operation Phoenix, I added. Over the next week, I moved through Singapore like a shadow, meeting with tech leaders and investors who'd been waiting for this moment. Everyone knew the Lee family name, but few had realized that the irresponsible younger daughter had been quietly building her own network. My phone kept buzzing with messages from home. Victoria, your access codes aren't working anymore. Guess you should have thought about that before abandoning ship. Mom, the board is very disappointed in you. Please stop this foolishness. Dad, whatever you think you're doing, it won't work. Come home before you embarrass us further. Each message confirmed that my plan was working. They were so convinced by their own narrative, the rebellious daughter on a misguided adventure, that they couldn't see what was really happening. Then came the message I'd been waiting for. Alex, Victoria found the prototype files. She's calling an emergency board meeting. The prototype files contained plans for an AI-driven trading platform, something that looked revolutionary on the surface, but was actually designed to fail in specific, predictable ways. Victoria, eager to prove she could handle the tech division, would undoubtedly push to fast-track its development. How long until she realizes it's a dead end? I asked during my nightly video call with Alex. 2 months minimum, he replied. By then, we'll be ready to launch the real platform through NextGen. My next stop was Seoul, where a quantum computing startup was waiting. Their technology, combined with NextGen's AI algorithms, would form the foundation of something unprecedented. But first, I had to maintain my cover. I posted carefully curated photos on social media, me at tourist spots, pretending to stay in budget hotels while actually working from luxury suites, looking every bit the carefree backpacker. Victoria couldn't resist commenting, "Hope you're enjoying spending your savings on street food while some of us are running a real business." I was in fact enjoying a Michelin-starred dinner with the quantum computing team when I saw her comment. The irony wasn't lost on my dinner companions. Your sister still doesn't suspect. Dr. Park, the quantum team's lead scientist, asked. Victoria sees what she expects to see, I replied, signing another acquisition contract. They all do. By the end of the second week, I owned 2 cutting-edge tech companies and was in negotiations for a third. My initial $30 million investment was already showing returns. But the real test was yet to come, because back home, Victoria was about to discover exactly what happens when you build a platform using compromised code. And I would be ready. 3 months into my backpacking trip, I was sitting in a penthouse office in Hong Kong when the message I'd been waiting for arrived. Emergency, Alex texted. Victoria's prototype just crashed during the investor demo. Total system failure. Your father's livid. I sipped my coffee, watching the sunrise over Victoria Harbor, right on schedule. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages. Victoria, what did you do to these files? Nothing works. Mom, your sister is devastated. How could you sabotage her like this? Dad, the board is meeting in an hour. You've destroyed our reputation. I forwarded the messages to my legal team. Everything needed to be documented for what came next. Should I tell them about the backup system? Alex asked during our secure video call. Not yet, I replied. Let's see how deep they dig themselves. The backup system was actually NextGen's new trading platform, the real version of what Victoria had tried to build from my decoy files. While she'd been struggling with corrupted code and false starts, we'd been quietly perfecting the technology. My phone rang. Victoria, for the first time in 3 months, I answered. You vindictive, she snarled. You planted those files, didn't you? Set me up to fail. Did I? I kept my voice calm. Or did you just assume you could handle technology you didn't understand? The board is calling for a full audit. Dad's shares have dropped 15% since the demo. Are you happy now? I checked my trading dashboard. The Lee family company's stock was indeed plummeting, which meant it was time for phase 3. Actually, Victoria, I said, I'm very happy. Check your email. I hung up and sent the pre-prepared press release to every major financial news outlet in Asia. Lee Dynamics announces revolutionary AI trading platform. Only it wasn't our father's company making the announcement, it was Lee Tech Solutions, my new company built from the acquisitions I'd made during my backpacking trip. Within an hour, the story was everywhere. The prodigal daughter hadn't been running away. She'd been building an empire. NextGen's technology, combined with quantum computing and 3 other strategic acquisitions, had created something unprecedented. My phone rang again. This time it was my father. What have you done? His voice was barely controlled. Built something of my own, I replied. Without the family name, without your connections. Just me, my skills, and the people who believed in my vision. The board wants answers. Our investors are jumping ship. They should be, I said. Because in about an hour, Lee Tech Solutions is going public, and we're offering to buy out your tech division at a very generous discount, considering its recent difficulties. The silence on the other end was deafening. You planned this, he finally said. All of it, the backpacking story, the files Victoria found. I learned from the best, Dad. You always said business was about strategy, about seeing 10 moves ahead. The IPO was a historic success. By the end of the day, my company was valued at over $500 million. The Lee family business, meanwhile, had lost nearly 40% of its market value. Victoria sent one final message. You could have told me. Like you told me about convincing Dad to pass me over for promotion last year, I replied, or about sabotaging my original proposals for the tech division. She didn't respond. A week later, I returned to Singapore, this time openly as the CEO of Asia's most talked about tech company. The media loved the story, the daughter who turned a backpacking trip into a business empire. My parents eventually accepted my offer to buy their tech division. They didn't have much choice. Their investors were demanding action after the prototype disaster. Victoria, she left the company. Last I heard, she was trying to launch her own startup. I wish her luck. She'll need it. As for me, I kept the backpack I bought for my trip. It sits in my office as a reminder that sometimes the best way to win isn't to fight the story people tell about you. It's to let them believe it until the perfect moment to reveal the truth. My mother finally asked me during a tense family dinner months later, why go through all the deception? Why not just tell us your plans? I looked at her, then at my father, then at Victoria's empty chair. Because you never would have believed me capable of this if I had, I said. You needed to underestimate me, to dismiss me. It was the only way I could build something truly mine. They couldn't argue with that. Today, Lee Tech Solutions is valued at over $2 billion. We're revolutionizing everything from financial trading to medical diagnostics. The family business is now a small subsidiary of my company, a fact that still makes Victoria furious. Sometimes, when I'm working late in my office, I look at that backpack and smile. The best journeys, I've learned, aren't always the ones you tell people you're taking. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving people wrong. It's in letting them believe they're right until it's too late for them to do anything about it. As for the $30 million I initially invested, best money I ever spent, not just for the return on investment, but for the look on their faces when they realized that their irresponsible daughter had outmaneuvered them all. The best revenge, after all, isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming. Final note: the Lee family still holds weekly dinners, quiet affairs now filled with careful conversation and calculated politeness. Victoria occasionally attends, but she leaves early, unable to bear the sight of my success. My parents are more accepting, having finally realized that their attempt to control my future only pushed me to create something greater than they'd imagined. And me? I keep that backpack visible in my office as a reminder. Sometimes you have to let people think you're lost to find exactly where you're meant to be.